Here we have the swivel pin. This is the passenger side, which is I guess the right hand side. Sometimes it's called a kingpin, but it's not really a kingpin, it's a swivel pin. It actually sits vertically like this, and there are trunnions at the bottom and at the top that allow it to swivel. Now, the trunnions themselves are here. This is the top trunnion, and this is the bottom trunnion. Now, it took me a while to realise what was going on here. The top trunnion has a space for the pivot pin. This is the pin that locates to the damper arm, and it has bushes which go in here. Now, this was supplied with rubber bushes, but I've decided to replace with polyurethane bushes. They are deemed to be a lot better by a lot of folks on the forum, so we'll take the majority view. But you'll note that this doesn't impinge in any way on the top of the pin itself. This is just a clear opening which is separate from the screwed part which goes onto the top of the swivel pin. Now the lower trunnion is different. I'll take this apart in a minute, but this screws on to the bottom of the swivel pin, but there is a wasted section on the swivel pin right here. Here we are, right here, and the pin, the fulcrum pin here, actually goes through the trunnion, obviously, and should touch or get close to the swivel pin in this wasted section. So it's really, really important that when you install the lower trunnion, you do it with the pin out. You screw the trunnion onto the swivel pin up to the point where you can actually get the pin through cleanly, so that the pin nestles next to this wasted section. Otherwise there's a danger of damaging the threads and just not being able to get it on. Now, the upper trunnion comes with a number of parts. First of all, there is this screwed disc which fits in the top here. I guess the reason for that is so you can actually access it, but I'm not quite sure why. I think the purpose is it enables you to pre-grease it, maybe. Anyway, that screws on the top there. There are the two bushes which go either side of this hole here, which holds the pin itself, the pivot pin, the thing that attaches to the arm. At one end, let's see if I can find it. At one end of the pivot pin, where it attaches to the damper arm, there is a castellated nut and a hole for a split pin. At the other end, there's a large washer, and the thing to note is that the washer is actually not perfectly circular. There's a cutout to fit exactly on the pivot pin. Now, and there's a locking washer here before you put the nut on. I have found that this locking washer, this comes from ESM. This pin and trunnion came from Bull Motif, who are no longer in business. I think Bull Motif got acquired by ESM, or their inventory did. Anyway, this locking washer doesn't quite fit, so when I did the other side, I had to file this a little bit to make it fit. And then at the bottom of the upper trunnion there's a rubber seal. So this seal goes here. So after a little bit of experimentation, I decided to actually reuse the old top trunnion. The reason is it fits down the swivel pin very nicely, turns excellently, much better than the new one, and there's no detectable play, so I cleaned it up and put that on. Still with the poly bushes, of course. I've got to put the grease nipple in. I left that out so that the grease would flow into the joint there. Now for the bottom trunnion, that's all ready. I screwed it onto the swivel pin without the fulcrum pin in, because I didn't want that to foul the threads. But once I got to a point where I could see the pin would go through the wasted section, I popped it in. So that's about a turn away from the end, and that moves nice and freely, as you can see, and the pin is in a good position. So for the top trunnion, we basically turn this back a turn towards the engine. Let's see, so the pin's going to be like that. So we'll turn it back Oops, there we are. I keep forgetting it's a left-handed thread. Turn it back like that, and we can put that on the top pivot pin. Pushes on, and then we've got the washer. There we go. Alright. Now, it's just a question of getting the jack in the right position. Get the screw on here. Sorry. And then the other arm goes on here. We've got the seal, we've got the washer. This off a little bit. Okay, yeah, that's good. I think I can raise it onto the swivel pin itself. In order for this to get into position. All right. Maneuver this into position by essentially jacking it up until I can slide it in. Now we can take it off the jack. Alright, and that's nice. No obvious play. Moving nicely, much better than before. Okay, so what did we do? So we took the pin and we assembled the top trunnion and the bottom trunnion onto the pin before we installed them on the car. It seemed the best method was to put the pin in the damper arm, attach it at the top, loosely attach it, and then use the jack to raise the cast arm at the back to the point where we can get the fulcrum pin through at the bottom. And once that was achieved, we could put the pressed part of the lower arm on and then wiggle the tie rod over to make it fit. And everything right now is kind of hand tight, maybe a few turns more, but I'm not going to tighten everything fully until such time as we got everything on, the car is on the ground. Now for the tie rod, you might be able to just see under there the bushes. Let's see where we can get a close up there. So what I did here was, per a lot of people's recommendations, I put a poly bush at the front and a rubber bush at the back. I found it easier to connect that end first before connecting it to the swivel pin in the lower arm, simply because of I guess the strength of the poly bush. It took a bit of an effort to get that on, even though the other side was rubber. So once that was tightened up, that gave me enough clearance at the bottom here, at the swivel pins, to maneuver it into position using the jack. So the next thing to do is to connect the zerk fitting, the grease fitting. We'll do that next, and then put the bump stops on. Now here's an unusual thing. The zerk fittings, the grease nipples that come with the original Trunnion, and this is an original Trunnion that I'm using, are much larger than the new ones. The new ones I got from Bull Motif have these tiny fittings. So I've cleaned up the old ones and I'm just going to reuse the old ones. It seems to make sense. Well, I have no choice. Now the next thing to do is to install the rebound check bracket. This just goes in, it actually fits behind and gets screwed here, here and here. But to do that I have to raise the damper arm, so I'm just going to use the jack to do that. So here's a strange thing. The lower rebound bracket, this is the old one, kind of crusty, the rubber's perished. This is the replacement. It's by no means as sturdy, but as you can see, the shape is different, so it requires some bending. When I did the other side, the best way I could think of to do this is to bolt these two together, hold them in the vise and then basically hammer this into the approximate position required. I'm hoping that's going to work.